You're listening to the AmWritingFantasy podcast. In today's publishing landscape, you can reach fans all over the world. Query letters are a thing of the past. You don't even need a literary agent. There is nothing standing in the way of making a living from writing. Join two best-selling authors who have self-published more than 20 books between them. Now, on to the show with your hosts, Autumn Burt and Jesper Schmidt.
Hello, I'm Jesper.
And I'm Autumn.
This is episode 126 of the AmWritingFantasy podcast, and I honestly don't know how we waited this long to discuss how to create a magic system, but what do you say? Never late than never? Or what do you say?
Yep, that's never late than never works for me. Yeah, magic is like foundational. We've been joking
Better
about
late than never.
Yeah,
that's what you're supposed to say. Better late.
Better than late. Yeah,
not never late than never. That doesn't make no sense.
Well, my English isn't perfect sometimes either.
Oh, this should be interesting.
Yes, definitely. We've been joking about magic and destroying computers all day. So, hey, why not talk about how you would develop that if that was your story?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because magic systems, that's one of my favorite topics.
It is. This world needs better magic system. If I was writing Earth, it would probably be bad for some people, so it's probably a good thing.
Yeah, honestly, there's not enough magic in real life.
No.
We need more magic.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If this was the story, totally different. Anyway, so how are things over on your side of the planet?
It's good. Not too many exciting things going on here, to be honest. I'm working on the chapter-by-chapter plotting of book 2 in our new series. And I should be done by the end of this week, I hope.
That's
pretty good. I'm just working on that. And otherwise, soccer is really picking back up here in Denmark. Last Saturday, we had 500 matches to cover in the region that I belong to, which was too much. So we actually had to tell some teams that they were not going to get a referee.
Oh, wow.
Because we didn't have any more. It was just too many matches on one day.
Crazy. They're excited. Yeah. COVID, spring, let's go for it.
Everybody just want to play matches, which is, of course, it's cool. But it's when everybody want to play on the same day, it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So just this week alone, I have 3 matches to referee.
Gosh.
So yeah, in that sense, it's a bit busy, you could say.
Yeah, I was going to say, on top of writing, on top of, everything else you got going on, plus work, and yeah, that should keep you on your toes a little bit.
Yeah, just a little. Maybe I'm going to be a bit tired once we reach the weekend. But I have to referee a match in the weekend as well, so that's not going to help much.
You're not going to get much rest.
So Sunday, I'm just going to be on the couch
Yeah, I think it'll be a well-deserved couch day. I hope it is quiet and rainy and you don't feel like going out and you can just be surf the internet and watch Netflix.
Yeah, I can watch more of American Gods like we talked about in a past episode.
Yeah, and
I
haven't
finished the entire first season of it now.
So it's good?
It's good.
All right. It. I've got a 14-day span coming up where I'm solo and I might put that one on the list.
I like it. It's really good.
Cool.
I haven't checked though, to be honest, because there is only 3 seasons, and I have not checked because I'm always concerned about checking online because then I'm gonna get spoilers or something. But I have not checked if it's like a proper ending, season 3, or if it's just one of those where they just stop funding it and then it just stops in the middle of something. I have not checked that, but I just have fingers crossed right now that it's going to be a proper ending and they had planned to end by the end of season 3. If not, then I'm going to get a bit upset. But
probably. I do remember reading that. Netflix likes to have series that only go 2 or 3. So hopefully people are writing knowing that Netflix prefers only 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, but this one is Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Darn. Oh, I don't know. Good luck.
Yeah, I don't know. and I dare not look it up on the internet. So,
See, I don't mind
but
spoilers
how about
at
you?
all.
What are you doing these days?
I released a book, so I'm happy. Yesterday,
Yay!
Revolution came out. I mean, when we're recording this, it came out just a few days ago. So by the time it's out in the world, the book will have been out for a little while. But yeah, so it's good. I have only one more book to go in my Tainted Fae series, so I can't wait. And I'm working on edits for that one, while at the same time working on edits for our co-written book one. So I'm editing and doing some graphic design just to keep my sanity, I suppose, and was going for some walks, but we're hitting the spring rains, which we desperately need, so I can't complain. But that means more inside time than outside time.
Oh, you must be going crazy by all that editing by now. Jesus.
I'll be happy when I finish Tainted Fae, and then I'm just working on our books, and it'll be much smoother. May is going to be a busy month for me as far as trying to juggle way too many things. But after this, hopefully it'll smooth out a little bit, and I mentioned I'll be a little solo for almost 2 weeks, so that should just work myself to death, forget sleep, pretend like I'm a vampire, and...
That's your plan.
That's my plan. Pretend like I'm a college student. I can work all night. That's what I'm gonna do. But it's wonderful. I mean, what I'm working on is wonderful. I can't complain. I just need more hours in the day.
A week on the internet with the Writing Fantasy podcast.
A few things to cover in this section today, but the
Oh.
most important part first.
Okay.
So we want to give a shout out and thank you to Creative Grey and James Dalton, I think that's how you say it, for joining us on Patreon.
Yes, thank you.
And-
We always appreciate having new supporters.
Yeah, not only that, Dominic also increased his pledge. So thank you
that's
for
right.
your support as well, Dominic. So it is because of you guys, together, of course, with the existing Patreon supporters, that we can keep the show going. So if you're listening out there and you haven't checked Patreon out yet, then ask yourself if you feel that this podcast is perhaps worth $1 a month. Maybe.
So yeah, we think so. I would support us if I wasn't already supporting us. But I give
We'll
my time.
ourselves $1.
I would give ourselves $1. Sounds good.
Well, there's a link in the show notes from where you can check out Patreon and all the rewards that we offer over there if you're interested. And once again, thank you so much to Creative Grey, James Dalton, and Dominic for your pledges. We really appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, speaking of Patreon, I think everybody probably heard about Kindle Vella by now.
Yeah.
But I actually wrote a detailed overview together with my personal recommendations on Kindle Vella for our Patreon supporters.
Excellent.
So by joining on Patreon, you are also going to get access to that and tons of advice that we don't share anywhere else. And Autumn, you've written quite a number of advice articles and so on Patreon as well.
Yes, I enjoy
there's
doing my
probably
writing
hundreds.
tips and things there. Yes.
Yeah, so that's very good. We love to see it. Actually, it's so that once we get to $100 a month on Patreon, which we are very, very close to, then we're actually going to do a dedicated Patreon Q&A session only for Patreon supporters.
Yes.
So yeah, if somebody wants to get in on that, you could jump in now and just pledge a bit there on Patreon, and it's not going to take much to put it over the top. So
that's true.
And then we're good to go.
That would be fun. Oh, I can't wait. We've actually gotten to talk to a couple of our Patreon supporters, and they're all awesome, and that would be really cool to get to have a Zoom chat or something with them.
Yeah, and we just before recording this podcast episode, we also just came off the monthly Q&A session we do with all students and all patron supporters at $5 and up, and it's just wonderful. I love the interaction with people, and I love the being able to see people's faces even better when they join live, but also some people just email in some questions, which is wonderful, and I love being able to help directly like that. It's fun to do the podcast, but that's more generic, whereas the Q&A sessions is responding directly to people's questions. So I love that.
I do too. I'm hoping, with COVID easing up, maybe there'll be more conferences and stuff again, because I love the in-person stuff. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and we still have it on the idea list to see if we could do some sort of AmWritingFantasy thing.
Yeah.
Maybe a live thing with seeing people live and stuff like that. Sounds dangerous, but maybe we should do that one day.
With 6 foot distancing. But well, did you see the Facebook group is over almost 4.5 or 4,500 members? So that would be quite the party.
Yeah, that's gonna be quite crazy.
Yeah. I think it would be.
Yeah.
And on to today's topic.
So yeah, as I said at the top, magic systems are probably, apart from map making, one of my favorite topics because it's such an integral part of the fantasy genre.
It is. And it's funny though, because I think I still remember reading fantasy as, a young kid and thinking, oh, this is so cool. And I just kind of assumed all magic was, magic. It was like the same as Tolkien, the same as like the first story you read. All magic is going to be like that. And it was sort of the introduction that magic could be different in different stories, and then there's limitations and how you overcome them, that I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then you start thinking, what kind of magic would I have? We just got asked that on a podcast, what kind of magic would you want? And it was just so fun to think about, and especially as a writer, to structure magic and to do that. What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? How can you overcome it? To me, those are the best parts of writing, are figuring those things out and then putting two people together and having a battle, and it'd be good.
Yeah, and it's also very nice with magic if it's just part of the genre, right? I mean, if you read a fantasy novel and the magic just doesn't. I'm not saying that every single fantasy book has to have a lot of magic in it, but if it's not at least there in one way or another, and it's also maybe a bit cool, that it's not just the same thing you've seen a million times before, then it makes a difference.
I agree, definitely. It makes it there's just something really cool. It's what's partially memorable, but I can't see either of us ever writing a low fantasy novel with very little magic.
No.
But then I did write a dystopian series where there is no magic, but lots of explosions. So sometimes you can surprise yourself.
Lots of explosions.
I have to admit though, I was writing my Elemental Magic fantasy series, and so that was that magic, and I just wanted something that couldn't be solved with magic. And it was a challenge to switch to something where things had to be done with just wit and intelligence and guns. So it can be interesting, but I prefer fantasy, I prefer magic, and I think it's really fun. We've come up with some really different systems through our own books, and then the book we're writing together, that make the magic even that much more fun and interesting to write about.
Yeah. So as part of the world building course that we are offering on AmWritingFantasy.com, we have an entire module on developing magic systems, and within that we have created 6 rules of magic.
Yes.
And the course will go into a lot more details about each of these 6 rules and add a lot more content to them. But in this episode here on the podcast today, we were thinking to just go through, let's say, a bit more quick and then yet not totally quick overview of all the 6 rules.
I think that sounds very good. And you recorded this module, so I will let you lead. I already admit you. This is your this is your structure, so I will follow up.
Yeah, so basically we'll just go through the 6 rules of magic here, and and then we can talk a bit about it as we go as well.
Yes,
and hopefully
absolutely.
It'll help people to inspire you listeners for when you're doing your magic systems. So first rule of magic. It sounds like first rule of Fight Club or all this, right?
I like these rules already.
Yeah. First rule of magic. So in order to explain our first rule of magic, I think I need to set the scene a bit. Because you see, magic systems can either be very specific, they can also be vague and mysterious, or somewhere in between.
That makes sense. So what about examples?
Yeah, exactly. So if we take an example here, take Lord of the Rings, for example. So on one hand, we find magic in the Lord of the Rings that is very specific. So like the One Ring, it is very clear what the one ring does and how it works. It has rules, right? So that's pretty obviously. Conversely, we also find magic in Middle-earth that seems to have absolutely no rules.
Like Gandalf?
Gandalf is, he's the perfect example, right? And there are those that say that the magic in Middle-earth, and especially with Gandalf, is just too random. You know, one moment you'll have Gandalf running for his life trying to escape orcs, and then the next minute he pulls off some weird magic trick that you never heard about before.
Yes.
And we didn't even know what it was possible in this setting. So there is a debate about that, and I'm not going to go into it. It's a big rabbit hole, and I've seen some of the crazy conversations going on about that. So we'll leave that to everybody else to debate. But what I wanted to say about it was more that if you're looking at Gandalf's magic, then it is less rules and much more mystique, right? So you don't quite know what he can do, really. And on the other hand, the ring, you know exactly what it can do.
Right.
So I think, there is one thing I wanted to point out with Gandalf here. And actually, I prepared a short audio clip here.
Okay.
And it is one of my favorite scenes in Lord of the Rings. And if you're ready for this, let me play it, and then I'll tell you afterwards why I included it.
Okay, there better be a relevance. You're not just geeking out on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I'm just going to play like 15 different sound clips from Lord of the Rings, and there's no relevance whatsoever to the topic. Yeah. It's a podcast. It sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
No, okay, but maybe there's a relevance, but you can see if you can work out what it is.
All right.
You cannot pass! I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Ulun! Go back to the shadow! You shall not pass!
I still get the goosebumps from listening to that.
It's such a good scene. I wish we could show the whole, the actual clip. It'd be so dramatic.
Yeah, you remember what it is, right?
I'm trying to remember what he is fighting off, but yes, he is standing there saying, you are not going any further. And
he's fighting the Balrog.
That's what it was. I was like, I know it's not the dragon. What is it? What is it? What is it? All right. Now I have to go watch these movies again. Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Awesome.
But the reason why I included this, because you can hear in the clip he proclaims to be the wielder of the flame of Arnor. And we have absolutely no idea what this secret fire is all about. It has never been mentioned before in the entire book. And well, he's just the wielder of it for some reason.
He could be making
but that's
it
the
up.
whole point. Yeah, that's the whole point, right? It's intriguing. And it leaves us with like a sense of wonder and awe, and we're like, I wonder what that is. It sounds cool, but we don't know what it is. So put into different words, apart from the One Ring, Lord of the Rings is what we can categorize as a soft magic system. So this is basically, if you ignore the One Ring, this is where you have no rules, and the author doesn't really probably know himself or herself what the extent of magic is and what it can and cannot do.
And it sounds,
so that's one type of magic system.
And to me, I mean, as a writer, I used to think I would never like a soft magic system, but my Fae books are a soft magic system, and in their own way, it's kind of fun. I usually like rules because then I know how to break them and how to build tension. But it's also kind of fun to be like, it's magic. You can do whatever you want. You know, have this small little brownie being like, what do you mean you don't think you can do that with magic? It's magic. So there is something fun to that as well.
Absolutely. I think the key with the soft magic system is to be careful with the Deus Ex Machina. So
Yes.
if people don't know, Deus Ex Machina is translated into the God in the machine, which basically means that, something within the machine will all of a sudden make it work, and then everything is resolved. And in other words, the problem with soft magic systems is that, let's say you reach the climax of your novel and the character is in a pinch there, and it's a big problem, and then all of a sudden he just pulls some random spell out that nobody has heard about before, and then he wins the or defeats the dragon and wins everything he wanted to win or whatever.
Yeah.
And that can feel a bit like, it's a bit cheap. It's not a good resolution of an entire novel that you just pull out a random spell that fixes everything. So
and why didn't you do it
the
earlier?
soft magic system, be careful with that stuff, with soft magic systems.
And I think that's
On
definitely
the
why I like the
opposite-
hard magic. Yeah.
Yeah, on the opposite end of the scale, we have the rule-based magic system. So this is referred to as hard magic, like you just said. And examples could be Patrick Rothfuss or Brandon Sanderson. They are often found in this category. So a rule-based magic system just means that the readers know what magic can and cannot do. So all of a sudden, you don't even have to worry about Deus Ex Machina anymore, because there are rules to be followed. And the characters just can't do whatever they please, because it's not possible within the magic system. So characters have to use their resolve and intelligence to figure out how maybe to use magic, but then how can they use the magic to their advantage? And it's not just pulling out a spell you never heard about before. So we have a pretty hard magic system in our setting, Autumn.
Yes, definitely.
We even have a list of the spells that you can cast.
I think we have I don't think I've had a magic system this hard before. I mean, it's very limited. It's like, like 1 of 9 things you can do. So it's very, very limited. And it's different because I think I'm somewhere usually in the middle where it's like, these are the certain rules, but if you kind of know what you're doing, you can kind of combine and overlap and discover new possibilities using the same rule system, which is always fun. But yeah, hard magic is neat though, because you do know the rules, you know what they are, what you can't do. And so you know sort of like where the limits are, you know what can cause tension. Okay, it's almost like Superman and Kryptonite, but it's more interactive and interplay. And that lends into stress. It's a understandable output so that you know the character can fall and be defeated, and you're like, oh gosh, no, because this is what gets me with like Doctor Who with a sonic screwdriver that can do anything. It's a sonic screwdriver. It should not be able to save the world, but it can in some episodes, and that just drives me absolutely crazy. So you have to be careful if you do create rules. You don't then throw them to the wind.
No, I agree. But as you say, of course, it can also be in between somewhere, like you just mentioned, that it's a bit hard magic system, but then not quite. So J.K. Rowling is usually in here with her Harry Potter series. There is some rules within the Harry Potter universe and magic system, but then not quite anyway, because then sometimes she pulls out some stuff that you never heard about again. So there's also that possibility to settle your magic system somewhere in between these two endpoints. And it's probably to a large degree, it's a sliding scale, right? You can play it with it as you want. But basically, without realizing now, we actually covered the first rule of magic here, because the first rule of our magic is to decide what kind of magic system are you going to construct here. Is it subject to rules? Is it not? Is it somewhere in between? That's the first rule of magic. That's the first thing you decide.
That's a pretty cool rule. So I'm going to go with hybrid because it's good to have some wiggle room.
Well, yeah. I actually like most of them, to be honest. I think that each of them have their own challenges, and they also come with their own benefits. I don't necessarily, I think, have a preference. I think most of it is okay. The only thing I don't like is the soft magic system, where all of a sudden you do like the Gandalf stunts. I don't like that, to be honest, because it just feels too easy.
Yeah,
it feels like the author didn't know what to do, so all of a sudden the magic user just pulls out some stunts, and then, oh, look at that, everything was resolved.
Yeah,
I don't like that. But other than that, then I think all of them are equally good and bad in their own ways.
Yeah. Well, as long as there's magic, we're good.
Yeah. So, second rule of magic.
All right.
This one asks, where does magic come from? And that's interesting as well. So, it could be that you pull magic from nature, maybe from spirits, maybe from another realm. Maybe you pull energy off of things, or you get it from the gods, or maybe from within yourself. There's a million options.
Yes. Reading spell books.
Yeah, but then you're probably pulling it either from within yourself, or you are pulling
ingredients.
It's more about, second rule is more about, it's not so much how you create the spell, but it's more about where do the energy for the magic come from, basically.
Okay.
Right.
So
are you getting granted magic skills by the gods because you pray to them, for example?
Okay.
Or do you pull it from demons, or do
ley lines on Earth?
like in like in our setting, they pull it, the magic users pull it from within themselves, because our magic system is based on emotions. So you have to funnel your own emotions in order to, or channel your own emotions in order to cast spells. So, but it could be a million things. But the answer to this question gives you a lot of interesting things to play on for the next coming rules here.
Oh, okay. I like that one too.
Yeah. So should we move on to rule number 3?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add, but that makes sense, because it's not necessarily that like you have a type of magic, like elemental magic. It is, is it the gods granting the magic, or is it your own innate soul or ability or power? It's like another sense. So, okay, I got that one.
You got that. Okay, third rule of magic. How can you create a broken magic system? That sounded odd, didn't it?
Oh, I don't think.
Why would you want to create a broken magic system? The thing is, leaving space for magic to fail, or not to always go as it was intended, that creates another sense of wonder, and it also hints of some sort of hidden depth within the magic system that keeps it intriguing and interesting. When your spellcasters, when they have to deal with maybe some setbacks or disasters once in a while from a spell that goes wrong, or maybe it just doesn't happen at all, or something, But if you can create some sort, it should not happen very often, obviously, but if you could create something that just once in a while, the magic just doesn't work like you expected it to. That is interesting.
I think so. I mean, that's why this rule is definitely one of my favorites, because it's not because I'm really good at breaking things, I swear. But I am really good at breaking things. But
I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah, I really am. But I think it's interesting if if things go wrong, if things can go wonky, and it pushes your characters into situations that are even more tense. That is better for the reader. It's better for your story. It's so exciting. This is why I can't do the completely soft magic system where it's like, oh, you can do this, but then tomorrow you can't. I like to have at least some kind of groundwork laid, that I know some things hold true. It's like if gravity started just tomorrow, decided to reverse for 15 minutes. Why?
Yeah.
Why then? And it saved you from getting hit by a car. Wouldn't that be fantastic? But yeah, so I think this is a good one that maybe a lot of people don't think about until they are trying to fight. But if you want to start thinking of your climax and thinking of ways your hero can fail, you need to know where the weaknesses are, how things can go wrong. I still love that about the first time I read Dragonlance and read like how you forget the spell after you cast it, and so then you have to sit down and you have to reread it again. I'm like, that's cool. That is really fun to have that weakness. You cast something and then you're like, sugar, I need it again. I need to go do this.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's true. That's it comes from D&D, that thing in Dragonlance there, but that is very cool. But I think as well, what you just said also made me think back to the soft magic system, because for one, of course, if you have something like a broken magic system, then you need to foreshadow it before the ending that it breaks. Like so something maybe in a minor situation early on in a novel, we get to see the break in the magic system, so to speak. And it doesn't only just happen at the end, because while it does add tension, it can also come across as if, oh, okay, the author needed a bit more tension, so all of a sudden a spell failed, and they never ever failed before. So that's not good either.
No.
But just tracing back to the soft magic system there, you said as well, because it made me just think that it goes with that as well, that if you have a soft magic system where spells can, well, you just make it up basically, because they can do whatever you want them to.
Right.
But the thing is, once the character has cast a spell, you have to remember that they can do it again, which means that if you cast a spell in book 1 and then in book 4, that spell would actually have resolved the situation, but all of a sudden the character doesn't use that spell. The reader will remember, and the reader will be like, hey, wait a minute, why didn't he just cast that spell he used in book 1? It would have fixed the whole thing.
That's true.
So be careful. You need to keep track of this stuff then. If you have like a soft magic system, that what spells have you actually used, and if they are applicable again to resolve a later situation in a later book, logic only speaks to the fact that the character should be using it again.
Absolutely, that's a really good point. Is just because you have a loose or a soft magic system doesn't mean that you don't have to pay attention to how the magic works or how you end up using it in your writing.
Indeed. But that was a sidetrack. Let me get back to fourth rule of magic.
All right, number 4 already.
And number 4, yeah, we're moving quickly here.
Yes.
What are the limitations of magic?
Ooh, excellent.
And this fourth rule of magic is actually mostly intended for you as the writer, because most readers will probably never notice that it's here. But that doesn't matter one bit. The story will become better, and that is the part that readers will and should notice, because when our fourth rule of magic reads limitations, I'm not really talking about the cost of using magic.
Okay.
You know, like needing certain ingredients or something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. Limitations just means what magic cannot do.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's very important to know.
That is a very important part. So that's like if you're a water elemental, you can't use fire. That's just the way it works. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just knowing that there is some stuff that the magic cannot do. Or maybe it could also just be that nobody can ever, if you have, like, let's say you have the soft magic system again, but maybe there is limitations in the sense that nobody can ever cast any sort of teleportation or time travel spells or something like, you know, you could have certain types of spells or effects that they cannot happen ever, no matter what. But those limitations are important. And as I said, the reader might not notice, or they will probably not know that you have decided that teleportation is impossible.
Right.
But the fact that this never happens, it's something that you then have to play with, because when you're writing, again, you can't use teleportation as a resolution for a problem because you've decided that there is this limit.
Yes.
And of course, bonus points for every author who can then link their limitations to some sort of logical sense or logical reason within their world building.
Oh,
right? So if you can create a link there, you're going to get bonus points.
I like that. I know they're keeping track of their points, but that is a good point to make it, you know, inherent to the world, so that, yeah, so that the two are tied, that you have this magic system that comes from the world and cannot go beyond a certain reason because of something you've already created in the world. That is cool world building. That is definitely masterful.
Yeah, indeed. And then it also shows the reader that, you know, that there is a reason for this world building element actually had a consequence over here in the magic system and so on, which, yes, it just adds so much depth to the world.
Very cool.
Fifth rule of magic. We're almost there now.
Yeah, we are. We're moving right along.
Yeah. The fifth rule of magic is something we just touched upon, actually. It's what are the costs of magic?
Oh, cost. So
Oh,
this is like
cost.
energy, or is this where you would say ingredients? Like you have to sacrifice something or burn some herbal something, or it just makes you tired. Is that what you mean by cost?
It could be, yes. I mean, costs are important. On one hand, because avid readers of fantasy expect there to be a cost for the use of magic.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a trope within the genre, and you need to abide to it. So let's give 2 examples here.
Okay.
When Frodo uses the One Ring, Sauron can sense his presence,
Oh.
right? And the additional cost is that the ring also sort of takes control over you. So you lose yourself to its sway and its power.
Right.
So there is a direct cost of use. There is benefits from using it, but there is a cost every time you do it.
That makes sense.
I'm just going to mention another example, then I'm going to go back to what you said as well.
Okay.
But in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, men go insane from using too much magic.
Oh, that's right. I remember reading that.
So again, there is a cost of using the magic. But as you said, it could also be something lesser. It could also be that whenever you use magic, you become really, really tired and you have to sleep, for example, or you get drained, or it could be all kinds of things.
I think,
but
that
there should be some sort of cost.
Yes,
You should not be allowed to run around just casting 500 spells and it doesn't matter.
But I have read a few where they had very strong limitations, like the elemental magic, and the cost was, slower. Like they could cast quite a few spells, but yeah, if they did something big, or if they cast too many of them, and if you're only a water elemental and you're in the desert, there's only so many spells you can cast anyway. So I think sometimes having a strong limitation will allow you to have a looser cost.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, because essentially as well, that's to some degree what we did with our magic system as well. The costs are fairly limited in the sense that, but the limitations are huge, meaning that because it's based off of emotions,
yes.
If you have to pull from your emotions, but if you accidentally start mixing 2 emotions, so basically it's like you have to purify your mind. Like, let's say the dragon is attacking you. I used that on a different podcast we were interviewed on recently.
Dude, someone's gonna, if they've listened to it, they know how this ends.
True. But if the dragon is attacking you and you are scared, then you can channel being scared and use the spells that are associated to that emotion. But if you then all of a sudden, let's say the dragon does a swipe with his tail, all of a sudden you didn't expect that, and then you're surprised, and then you accidentally start challenging surprise as well as being scared at once. That's no good.
No, not in our world. That can end you in some place you don't want to be. Or with some magic
because all of a sudden
effect.
you're going to get random magic effects because the magic system cannot handle that you're mixing emotions.
Yes.
So you have to keep absolutely pure in your mind about what you're channeling and stick to that. And if you start feeling something else, which is pretty difficult not to do when a dragon is coming at you, then
you need to
then you're
channel
going to get in trouble.
happiness. You're like, oh.
Yeah. Imagine you need a happiness spell. That's pretty damn difficult to do.
It is. But we do have a cost because we do have a backlash of whatever magic you're channeling then kind of washes over you as well. So there is a cost, but it's a smaller cost because the limitations are so, like, if you break the limitations, you're going to have a horrible experience. Who knows what's going to happen? And, you could turn the dragon into 2 dragons and yay! So.
Oh my god. Jesus, making it even worse.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Unless they start fighting each
or you're
other,
like
then it could work.
pulverizing yourself or something.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Okay. Well, that leaves the 6th rule of magic.
All right. Wow, we're on 6 already. All right. I want to hear this one.
Yeah. So the 6th rule of magic is, what are the ramifications of magic?
Okay.
So applying the 6th rule is basically that, well, when applying it, I think, to be honest, you have to limit yourself a bit as well.
Okay.
Because at times it can be tempting to world build a different way of how magic impacts society and cultures for every single country and every single species and every single race in the entire world, you probably don't want to do that.
So ramifications are sort of, how does it fit into the world, like culturally? Like, do people without magic tolerate magic users, or they want to capture them and use them like lucky leprechauns? What's going on with the whole world and those who do and do not have magic?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what impact does it have on society, the fact that magic exists? And I think this is, I mean, you can have situations like, well, for example, let's just take Gandalf again because it's so easy. But,
not that you're stuck on Lord of the Rings or anything.
Not at all. No.
Okay.
No. What was that? The other podcast we were on as well, they said drink every time we talked about Lord of the Rings. I think it happened 5 times in 1 hour or something.
Yeah, thank goodness I was drinking tea.
Yeah. But where was I going with this? Yeah, so for example, Gandalf.
Yes.
He's very revered in Middle-earth because he's a magic user, right? So in that society, the mages are just respected people.
Right.
And you can leave it at something simple as that. It doesn't have to be more in terms of ramifications, but it could also be that maybe people don't like people using magic. Maybe there is like a magic police that arrests people who uses magic or something like that. Or maybe everybody can learn magic. So there's tons and tons of schools that you can go to and you just start learning magic. Or there's so many ways you can make it show in your culture and in your environment and in your setting that magic is part of the setting, but just don't go overboard and cram in 2 million variations. But I think if you pick a few things and work with that, then that's going to get you quite far.
Yes, I think that makes sense. I mean, that's like my epic fantasy with the elemental magic. Anyone who had elemental magic was like forced to join an order, the Church of Four Orders. So you could even make it a quasi-religious. I mean, the magic came from the goddess, so it all kind of fit together. So those are really fun ways to world build and make the magic fit into the world a little bit better. If the limitations are coming from the world, the result of having magic should be part of the world as well.
And I think, considering all that we've discussed, it's also worth mentioning how there are some cliche-filled magic systems that we have seen way too often.
No.
So I'm going to mention a few here.
All right, this will be fun. I like the cliche
there is.
ones.
I'm going to mention a few.
Ever since we mentioned,
and then you'll see that I'm right.
I'm sure I will. Ever since we mentioned having a pen name and just writing completely trope trash fiction, it just sounds like so much fun to me. It's like this other life. I now secretly want to do this.
It would actually be a bit fun, to be honest, but I think it would be quite silly as well.
It would be, but there's nothing wrong with silly.
No.
All right,
well, so next time you're creating a magic system for your setting, try to avoid the following 4.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Number 1, healing-based magic. Not that healing spells, they are quite common. There's nothing wrong with that. But when magic becomes more or less like a stand-in for a hospital, then you better stay clear of that. And I've been a bit guilty of that one myself. So try to avoid that. It's not very funny when all this time the magic user just heals whoever gets hurt and then they just continue. Not cool.
You would have to set up the world, because I've definitely done this too, but if you don't want to kill off too many characters, make the cost really high. You can heal someone, but it's a high cost to do it. But yeah, it is one way of avoiding killing off everyone if that's something you don't want to do.
Yeah, but then find better ways of doing that.
Yeah, it's got to have a high cost or
Number
high
2?
limit. Yeah.
And number 2 is throwing fireballs.
Oh,
and
come on.
I'm guilty of that too. But fireballs, no, please. We've seen it 200 million. But then do something else with fire.
They do too.
Just have them throw something other than fireballs, please.
Just once in a while.
No fireballs, Autumn.
You're no fun.
You are
All
prohibited from fireballs from now on.
Never
again.
I like breaking rules, so be careful with that one.
Okay, well, you're allowed to do a lot of fireballs and only fireballs, because then I know you're not going to do them, because you're going to do the opposite of what I say. So.
All right, okay.
Yeah. And, okay, this one is for you, Autumn. So I've been guilty of the first two myself, okay?
Right.
So
this one's specifically mine.
I've created a specific one for you, because I have two now that I'm guilty of, and then I'm feeling bad, and then I have to...
First two.
I have to drag you down with me.
All right, fine. All right. You want to pull me down? What is this one?
Elemental magic.
Oh, come on. I love elemental magic.
It is seen so many times.
Every magic's seen every time. I think I tried to do something different when I did mine. I tried to have the powers do... Plus, there's 5. It's not 4. So I did have 5 elements. But then you do have to explain that, even though that is a culture in this world has 5 elements. But yeah, I don't know. I still have no guilt. I adore elemental magic, and I tried to make it scientific so that Earth was minerals and, dead things, and fire, water could purify. There was so much fun trickling out the precipitates. I don't know. And fire could do light, so they could cast illusions. I tried to make it a little fresh. Come on.
I feel like you're not very taking my cliche-filled magic systems very seriously.
I have
You're
no regrets.
Basically saying that all of them is good.
It's magic. I have no regrets. Just put in magic.
Okay, what about my number 4? And you probably don't like that one either then.
Oh, yeah.
This is with Harry Potter.
Okay.
We've just had too many witches and warlocks using wands and spell ingredients, so... Let's take clear of that one. Can you at least give me that one then?
I can give you that one, actually. I've never written a story with spell ingredients and stuff, and I did love Supernatural. And then, they'd be tracking down all this stuff that they needed for these spells. But I don't know. It would be hard to do another original one. It's sort of like Arthurian legends at this point. I've read enough of those at the moment. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't feel that this was a very good ending, because I thought I had such good cliche-filled magic systems, and then you're not on board at all. I can just feel I want to
go write cliche-filled magic systems. I'm going to just...
Yeah, I want to stop this episode. It's not going the way I wanted.
Oh, I'm going to go read your Patreon post on Kindle Vella and maybe use that to write cliched magic systems. And I'll just be having a blast this weekend.
Oh, we better end here. This is not going well. So next week, Autumn should have a very good interview lined up for you if all goes well. So make sure to tune in for that.
If you like what you just heard, there's a few things you can do to support the AmWriting Fantasy Podcast. Please tell a fellow author about the show and visit us at Apple Podcast and leave a rating and review. You can also join Autumn and Jesper on patreon.com/AmWritingFantasy. For as little as $1 a month, you'll get awesome rewards and keep the AmWriting Fantasy Podcast going. Stay safe out there and see you next Monday.